fighting for religious liberty.
We will not allow people of faith to be targeted, bullied, or silenced anymore.
How the United States is keeping true to the promise of the First Amendment. And revisiting the president's first international trip to the Holy Lands of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, including a meeting with Pope Francis. Plus, a priest fighting for freedom. The Archbishop of the military closes the case on sainthood for one priest who died at war. On a special edition of EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, July 4th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C. Thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We join you on this July 4th to celebrate religious freedom, a value our founding fathers thought so important it was written into the Constitution. From the founding fathers to the present-day president, Trump vows to end government attacks on religious liberty. He signed an executive order in May to make sure Americans are not forced to violate their strongly held religious beliefs. He also made a promise to the Little Sisters of the Poor. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee has more.
President Trump marks the National Day of Prayer with a boost to religious freedom.
We will not allow people of faith to be targeted, bullied, or silenced anymore.
The order promises relief for groups with religious objections to the Health and Human Services mandate in Obamacare. That mandate requires employers, like the Little Sisters of the Poor, to cover birth control and abortion-inducing drugs.
Incredible nuns who care for the sick, the elderly, and the forgotten.
President Trump inviting the sisters up on stage and vowing to protect their conscience rights.
No American should be forced to choose between the dictates of the federal government and the tenets of their faith.
That gives Cardinal Donald Worrell, Archbishop of Washington, a reason to be optimistic.
This executive order has to do not only with individual freedom, but institutional freedom. The freedom of a church to determine what constitutes its mission, its ministry.
The order also asks the IRS to cut back on enforcing the Johnson Amendment. It bars churches and tax-exempt groups from endorsing political candidates. The Faith and Freedom Coalition, which represents conservative Christians, welcomes the move.
This executive order itself is going to alleviate a lot of pressure and potential threats against faith-based, certainly churches themselves, but other faith-based organizations.
That was correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reporting from the White House. Several Catholic leaders came to the Rose Garden that day to witness the president sign the order, including the president of the U.S. Bishops' Conference, Cardinal Daniel DiNardo, and lay Catholic leaders attending as well. Joining us now is Brian Birch, the president of CatholicVote.org, a Chicago-based nonprofit political advocacy group. Brian, welcome to the program.
Great to be here on this great day.
You were there today when the president signed the executive order granting relief for groups with religious objections to the HHS mandate. What was the mood there?
The mood was very vibrant, very encouraging. There was people of all religious faiths there. I think I would describe it as an event for all people of faith with a special Catholic flavor.
I saw the Little Sisters of the Poor were actually brought up there. Are you satisfied with the order? Does it go far enough to protect people of faith?
I think the order is a start. Obviously, there's some things that we would have preferred that the order included, but I think it's a very important first step in the resetting of the deck on religious liberty.
What else would you have liked to see the president or the administration do?
Well, ultimately, we'd like to see a law passed by Congress and signed by the president that makes protections for all people of faith, whether you're a private business or whether you're a religious charity. This includes the First Amendment Defense Act, a law that the president, as a candidate, pledged to sign. So this is a first step. Obviously, an executive order is limited in scope, but it resets the deck on where I think this president intends to take his leadership in protecting this foundational liberty.
Well, when you say it's limited in scope, does this mean on Sunday a priest can walk into the pulpit and say, vote for so-and-so? Is that still going to be a problem with the IRS?
Well, I think that's yet to be determined. I think the president signaled that he is going to direct the Department of Justice to be discretionary in how they prosecute that. I would say that the priests, pastors, Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, can certainly begin to speak much more openly about politics, about candidates, and yes, I think even express voting preferences. There's nothing, I think, contradictory about being a religious organization or a church and expressing your First Amendment right when it comes to political matters.
So this covers two things, covers the Johnson Amendment and also covers what we're talking about with the Little Sisters of the Poor. You saw them coming up. You saw how excited they were. Did you get a chance to talk to them?
I did. I spoke with them. I made sure I took a picture with them. They were very excited. You could tell they were very thankful to the president and to the vice president for ending this ordeal of theirs. It took many, many years of unnecessary dollars and litigation, not just for Little Sisters, for Notre Dame, for EWTN, for many, many charities.
That's right. Well, I noticed that they even got a shout out to their lawyer. That doesn't happen very often. Lawyers are usually down on the totem pole.
That's right. The lawyers are the unsung heroes, but they're still very important to the ones that keep this going.
It is. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. Brian Birch, president of CatholicVote.org.
Thank you.
U.S. and Canadian representatives are working together to advance religious protection around the globe.
Religious freedom does not protect a set of beliefs. It protects the people who advocate for those beliefs. And women around the world suffer greatly in places where there's no religious freedom.
I think it's important that people of faith have their voices heard in the public square so as to talk about how do we advance our common life? How do we build difference? How do we build our common life based on a recognition of difference?
Dr. Andrew Bennett was Canada's first ambassador for religious freedom and says it's important for the public to have knowledge of religion. He added it's key for countries the U.S. and Canada interact with to have that same knowledge and respect. It's been said that part of the solution to more tolerant societies is open dialogue about each person's right to express their beliefs. A new point-counterpoint book brings together a leading conservative voice and a gay rights advocate to debate several topics, including religious liberty. The two authors show it is possible to have sharp disagreements and remain civil. Joining us now is Ryan Anderson, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation and co-author of the new book, Debating Religious Liberty and Discrimination. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a fabulous book.
Thank you.
I was telling one of our board members actually the other day that I really enjoyed it.
Oh, great.
Enjoyed reading it. How did religious liberty become such a flashpoint?
That's a great question, and I think there are several different causes. One is just the decline in religiosity, the religious practice, a decline of religion's role in the public square. Another is the rise of the underlying disputed issues, contraception, abortion, the redefinition of marriage, now gender identity. I think those two forces, things that we disagree about going up, religious belief and practice going down, lead to the conflict.
Secularism, I think, is part of that. There's a section in the introduction of the book, let's put it up here, that explains basically your purpose of this book. The book is not only about the law or the Constitution, it's about how everyday citizens should approach religious and moral diversity. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, what we try to get at in the book is we're a pluralistic nation. We're not a Catholic nation or an evangelical nation, a Mormon nation, a Muslim nation.
Or a puritanical nation, as we used to be, right?
As we used to be.
Yeah.
We're a diverse nation, and how do we live together while disagreeing about the nature of God, who God is, what God is, what God
and the role in government,
us, the role of the state in regulating our lives. We're going to have to agree to disagree while creating space for people to lead their own lives in accordance with their beliefs about God and about the purpose of life.
You know, one of the things that I really liked about the book was that you each do your own bit, right? So John Corvino would write, and then you would write and explain sort of the rebuttal to all of this. And you talk a lot about the First Amendment Defense Act in here. And And you also talk about the free exercise clause. Why is that so important?
Yeah, so what we try to do is we pick specific issues. Where are there disagreements? And one of them has arrived around the First Amendment Defense Act. This is a piece of federal legislation introduced in the last Congress that says, now that marriage has been redefined, we're not going to punish anyone who continues to believe the historic definition of marriage. It draws a bright line, and it says if you believe marriage is the union of a man and a woman, we're not going to deny your nonprofit tax status if you're a charity. We're not going to deny your accreditation if you're a school. We're not going to deny a government grant or a contract if you're a service provider. And so it says that we're going to respect both sides of this debate. Some people won a major Supreme Court case. They got marriage redefined. They're protected. The people who lost that case, we're not going to treat you as social pariahs. We're going to treat you as equal citizens who have a right to continue believing what you've always believed about marriage.
Thank you so much. I wish we had another hour to sit here and talk about this. It's absolutely fascinating and so timely. Ryan Anderson, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and co-author of this, Religious Liberty and Debating Discrimination.
Thank you.
Coming up, President Trump marked his first international trip as leader of the U.S. with visits to symbolic homes of 3 major world religions. Plus, fighting for religious freedom in North Korea.
This is the first time I've felt the freedom to speak about this publicly.
Our conversation with one man on a mission to bring Christianity to non-believers. Thomas More and John Fisher are 2 saints who fought for religious freedom, and both were martyred because of it. We celebrate their joint feast day in June. Welcome back to this 4th of July edition of EWTN News Nightly. Our nation's birthday has been a federal holiday since 1941, but the tradition of Independence Day dates back to the American Revolution in the 18th century. On July 4th, 1776, the 13 colonies claimed their independence from England. This event led to the formation of the United States of America, and each year Americans remember the occasion by celebrating Independence Day. And while we remember the founding of our nation, Congress established Days of Remembrance in 1979 to honor those religiously persecuted during the Holocaust, including thousands of Catholics. President Trump says he stands in awe of the unbreakable spirit of the Jewish people. The president also pledged to confront anti-Semitism and condemned those who want to forget the past.
Those who deny the Holocaust are an accomplice to this horrible evil.
While at the Capitol in April, President Trump commemorated the Day of Remembrance, noting it was the first one since the death of Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel. He died last year. President Trump's first foreign trip highlighted the importance of religious freedom not only here in America, but around the world. He visited Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Tel Aviv in Israel, and the Vatican, which is where executive producer Susie Pinto traveled to cover his meeting with Pope Francis.
President Donald Trump arrives in the Vatican.
Welcome to the Vatican. It's an honor, a great pleasure to receive you here.
The ancient protocol of the church on full display.
Mr. President.
The visit began with a handshake and then a picture. The president thanking the Holy Father.
Thank you very much. This is such a great honor.
After a private meeting that lasted 30 minutes, President Trump introduced the First Lady, and they shared a light moment. The Holy Father asking Melania about a favorite Slovenian dessert of his. And then she asks him to bless her rosary. As is tradition, the Pope and the President exchange gifts, Trump giving Francis a first edition set of Martin Luther King's works, as well as a bronze sculpture. The Holy Father presented the U.S. leader with a medal representing peace and 3 documents that to some degree define his papacy and priorities, including the family and the environment. The Pope telling the president he hopes Trump can be an instrument of peace, and then a promise. President Trump telling the Holy Father, "I won't forget what you said." Lauren, we don't know what Pope Francis said to President Trump today during their private meeting, but the Vatican released a statement expressing satisfaction on the common commitment to life, the freedom of worship, and conscience rights. The Holy See also said it hopes that the Vatican and the Church in the United States can work with the U.S. government on the issues of health care, education, and helping immigrants.
There has been so much buildup to this first encounter. Can you give us a little window into what the president's reaction was to meeting Pope Francis?
Lauren, President Trump seemed quite happy after this meeting. He called it fantastic. He later said it was the honor of a lifetime, and he said he left the Vatican today more determined than ever to seek peace in the world.
That's just incredible. He's been on an amazing journey. I understand, though, after this, the president and his delegation were able to see some of the cultural heritage of the Vatican?
That's right. After their meeting with Pope Francis, they went to the Sistine Chapel, which of course is the site of Michelangelo's famous fresco, The Last Judgment. Melania and President Trump gazed at that beautiful piece of art, and then they went downstairs to St. Peter's Basilica, where they saw another masterpiece by Michelangelo, the Pietà, the famous statue of Our Lady with Jesus in her arms. And then they made one final stop to the tomb of St. John Paul II, who of course is so famous and made such an impact on the world.
That's wonderful. Susie, thank you so much for all of your reports from Rome. Susie Pinto, EWTN News Nightly executive producer.
Thank you, Lauren.
We also learned during that visit to the Vatican that our First Lady is Catholic. Her spokeswoman confirmed after the meeting with Pope Francis that Mrs. Trump is the first Catholic First Lady since Jackie Kennedy. In many countries around the world, religious freedom is not highly valued. According to Open Doors USA, North Korea ranks first for religious persecution. Joining us now is Vernon Brewer, President and CEO of World Help, a Christian humanitarian organization helping impoverished communities. Thank you so much, Vernon, for joining us.
Thank you, Lauren.
We spend a lot of time on this program talking about Iraq and persecution that is there. But we want to talk about your recent op-ed where you talk about a whole narrative of persecution against Christians, which goes largely unreported in the media, is that of North Korea. Based on your personal experience in helping Christians there, tell us why more reports need to focus on this.
Well, this is the first time I've felt the freedom to speak about this publicly because of the repercussions of the Christians there. Right now, 70,000 Christians are in political labor camps being tortured, just like this one young man that was just released. 70,000 Christians being tortured every day. And when I was there, I met with 81 Christians who had been arrested, imprisoned, beaten, dismembered, some of them killed, and their only crime was being a follower of Jesus Christ. In fact, our partner on the ground, his name's Charlie, but that's not his real name. Yeah. He was arrested for 240 days, and they beat him every day. And when he was finally let out, he was a broken man.
Well, it sounds very much like what we're hearing about Otto Warmbier, or Warmbier. Now, you have been there. It is one of the most secretive governments in the world. How do people practice their faith with this threat of camps like this?
They do it very secretly. I can't tell you how we get the Bibles in, but we've distributed over 110,000 Bibles just recently, because most Christians in North Korea don't even own a copy of God's Word, and they meet in secret places, much like first century Christians, and they pay a great price for it. If they're caught with the Bible, they can spend a year or two in prison.
Your organization since 2005 has smuggled in more than 100,000 Bibles. But what happens to those people who have the Bibles and are caught? They're the ones who then go right into the camps. So what can be changed? What needs to change about religious freedom in North Korea? And will it ever change?
Well, at World Help, we like to do two things. Help for today with humanitarian aid that's needed immediately, and hope for tomorrow, which is spiritual hope with God's Word. And right now at World Help, we're trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus on the ground. And I think it's time to say enough. I think we need to wake up to the fact that Christians are being tortured systematically, and I think we may not stop the persecution, but we need to stand with them in their time of greatest need.
Vernon Brewer, President and CEO of World Help, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren.
Up next, fighting for our country, a priest killed while serving could become a saint. Plus, Pearl Harbor, 75 years later. We look back at the event that brought the U.S. into World War II and talk to some survivors. Welcome back to our 4th of July edition of EWTN News Nightly. I'm Lauren Ashburn. There are those who risk their lives to fight for freedom. In April, the president and vice president saluted the group Wounded Warriors before the start of their annual soldier ride.
Welcome you all to the White House.
The first and second ladies joined a ceremony at the White House where President Trump thanked the troops for their service.
You've earned our freedom with your sweat and your blood and your incredible sacrifice. We salute you, we salute your service, and we salute the flag you have so courageously protected.
The Soldier Ride is a multi-day bike ride in partnership with the Wounded Warrior Project and is designed to empower veterans and injured service members. This next story exemplifies the great sacrifice priests make serving in the military. Father Vincent Capodanno is being considered for sainthood after being killed in action nearly 50 years ago. It happened in Vietnam. The Archbishop of Military Services just closed a 4-year inquiry into the Staten Island native's life. The findings now head to the Vatican. Jason Calvi spoke with one Marine who was there the day Father Capodanno died.
There's not a day go by that I don't feel him.
Father Vincent Capodanno died while ministering in Vietnam 48 years ago. But he's still fresh in the mind of veteran Raymond Harton.
I feel that if there ever was a saint or going to be a saint, that he would qualify to be one.
Father Capodanno served as a missionary and then a Navy chaplain. Harton had a personal encounter with the priest on September 4th, 1967. That's when Harton was hit by a sniper shot. He prayed. When his eyes opened, he saw Father Capodanno.
When he touched me, when I thought I was dying, was a calmness that come over me that I've never felt before or since. He said, "Stay calm, Rain. Someone will be here to help us soon." And God is with all here today.
Then, his final sermon, a silent act of love. Capodanno shielded an injured medic from enemy bullets, which
killed.
The United States gave the priest its highest military honor, but the family still misses the man known as Uncle.
I wish that the ones that didn't know him, nieces and nephews, I would have been wonderful for them to know him, that's all.
Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
Finally tonight, we look back at the 75th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. In December, Wyatt Goolsbee traveled back in time with 2 World War II soldiers who survived the surprise strike.
World War II veterans, their friends and families honor those who lost their lives on this day 75 years ago.
I think there's something good about remembering the past.
Richard Young, a Presbyterian minister and former Navy seaman, led today's prayer. The 94-year-old remembers that fateful day aboard the USS Warden when his younger brother woke him and told him they were under attack.
I ran with him up topside, and I saw the red dots, and immediately I knew they were Japanese. So I ran back down yelling, "The Japs are attacking, the Japs are attacking."
Little did Young know that the Japanese attack would leave more than 2,300 servicemen and women dead and more than 1,000 injured.
So I heard the gunners, chief gunner's mate call out, "If anyone's ever prayed, now's the time." So I knew what he meant, that a bomb was about to fall on us. So I said, Lord, forgive me, I'm about to meet you. And the bomb went off, and it had missed our ship about 25 yards.
Up to that point, the U.S. had remained neutral in the war. The next day, December 8th, President Franklin Roosevelt gave his famous speech to Congress.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
It was just 3 days later, on December 11th, when Roosevelt sent a letter to Congress recommending a declaration of war against Italy and Nazi Germany.
By all the peoples of the world who are determined to remain free.
95-year-old Army veteran William Flatters, who also survived Pearl Harbor, traveled to D.C. from Brownsville, Texas. His advice for the younger generations?
Just try to keep our country, keep it clear and free.
Thank you for joining us for our special Religious Liberty edition. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night, and God bless you.